From a business standpoint, which one of those do you want to be? You want to be the people all standing in a military row in a line, all wearing their gray or black suit, white shirt, tie, and all this type of stuff, the IBM look? Or do you want to be the one standing on your head with everybody going, why are you doing that? So you'll ask the question, why am I doing that? Because that starts the conversation. That builds to that point where people want to know more, where people want to get to know you, where they'll actually engage with you on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter and start the conversation and keep things moving. And that's when you become an influencer. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're not there, but people are paying attention to you. They're curious about your message because they're beginning to find out something about it now that they understand you just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it's because you did something to gain attention.
Exactly.
And, it was the right type of attention. It was to do something a little different than what others are doing. And like you said, in that scenario, in that image there, you see everybody standing tall, straight in their suits. Mm-hmm. Then you see somebody else standing on their head or, upside down. And there's also another image that I'm sure many people have seen on the internet where they have all the little sweet little ballerinas at their little bar. And they're all doing their little plies. And then there's that one little girl at the very down. She's swinging on that bar from her knees. And who do you see first? Where's your attention going?
Who gets noticed?
Who gets the attention?
When we start talking about the brand you, how many other people are in your community where you live and work that do something very, very similar to what you do? We all have competitors. We all love competition because it gets us bigger, better, and stronger, on laying that out. But how do you get to be the one? Mm-hmm. That one that they're going to say yes to. I want to know more. I want to find out more. I'm willing to invest a conversation with you on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, phone, face-to-face, whatever. It's the same thing when you go to a face-to-face networking event. How are you going to stand out?
As you say, how can you be rememberable?
Rememberable. Yes, we know that's not a word, but
being rememberable means stand out. How will people, when you follow up with them after they've met maybe 50 people, sometimes at some of these events? We were at one last evening where we had all these new members, and it was an after-hours event at one of our local chambers. And, how are you going to, when you do that follow-up calls with individuals you spoke with, did you do something? Did you set a trigger of somehow to stand out? Were you influential with them in maybe speaking on a topic that interested them, that maybe you were able to connect with? All those little things are so important in business today. So you have to understand how you can be an influencer.
How you can be
memorable. So not only online, but in person.
Exactly. One of the tricks I'll use at a face-to-face networking, is I'll walk up to somebody, and I usually carry a little attaché or a little booklet or something like that I take notes on and drop business cards in. I'll walk up to somebody that I'm doing something with and I want to have another conversation with them, and I've got their business card or something like that. I'll just intentionally drop my little attaché, boom, made a little bit of noise. Now everybody looks around and go, Richard, what the heck are you doing? But what happens when I call them up a day or two later?
Well,
I'm the one that was clumsy and dropped my little attaché there on the floor. All of a sudden they remember me. I was that rememberable.
Mm-hmm. Well, most definitely. I mean, it's so important to figure out, and you don't want to be, and there's, bring attention, you don't want to be a class clown. I know when I was growing up, there was always that class clown that was definitely rememberable, and that was not always in the right way or doing things like that. But in business today, especially online, how are you going to be thought of? And I hear this from a number of individuals we speak with. We've been involved in the online marketing arena since, 98?
98.
A lot of years, almost 20 years next year. gosh, February of next year will be 20 years that we have actually been, researching and looking for ways to stand out in the online arena. And we've tried a lot of things that have not worked. We've tried a number of things that have been very successful. And then we just do some things that we just have fun at, and wonder sometimes why are we doing it, but yet we don't realize how many people are actually watching or listening. And I found this out talking to someone just recently. They had commented that they were at one of our very, very first workshops. And we're talking back in, and this is on, not on online marketing, but on social media. So this would have been back in 2010, almost 7 years ago.
Yep.
And they remembered a whole series that we did. And they wanted to know if we were going to do something like that again. And at that time we were, I guess you could say, the influencers in our area on social media. Nobody else was doing it. We were the first ones that kind of rolled it out and started teaching it and getting involved. So really, we couldn't really make any mistakes because nobody knew if we were doing it right or not. But we realized the importance of it, and we realized that in order for us to be known as the experts or be credible, we had to really invest so much in ourselves to become more influential.
Well, how many times have we flown out to California and stayed there for days to be with coaches and stuff that are out there
over the years,
that are in the arena? I mean, we've invested thousands and thousands of dollars in laying that out. It's not about the money, but what it is, it's about the ability to bring value back to the people that we talk to.
And that's a very good point, because that was what was brought to my attention by this individual I was speaking with. They said, because how many times whatever your industry is, you hear people say, "Oh yeah, someone else, whether it's real estate or in marketing or web developers, whatever, there's another person that joined the chamber that does what you do." You hear that. And I finally stepped back one day. I says, "What do you mean they do what I do? Do you know what I do?"
"Oh, you do social media."
"That's not what I do." And so that's where you have to really realize, oh, obviously I'm not doing a very good job of helping them understand what it is that how I serve. So it really helped me kind of come back in and realize, or kind of search, what is it that I do? What is it? Who am I? How do I serve? What is the best way for me to help others and assist others? So, but what I found out from them is they said, there's so many people that have been in the community that have presented and done what you did, but they are not here anymore.
No.
And you and Richard still are. And you continue growing. And trust me, we're continuing learning as well. Like Richard said, we don't share all the education we've invested into to boast or to impress you, but to impress upon you how important it is to continue learning your trade so that you can be credible, you can be known as the person to go to, which then in turn has now made you the influential person in your industry or in your area. So those are all those little key ingredients that you have to just understand.
Being an influencer is one thing. Being influential is a totally different thing on that. Being an influencer, you can give talks and speeches and write books, and you can be an influencer. But to be influential is something that somebody has to bestow upon you. Okay?
That's that credibility.
We can't go out there and say, I'm the influential one in this or that or whatever. You might be the best at it, but being influential is bestowed on you by the people that you have met, talked to, presented to, charged fees to come to meetings with. That is the gold standard for all of us that are in the public eye.
And that's where you have to really understand that you have to find your voice or risk fading out and being no more. And there's a gentleman that I follow on social media, Bernard, I think it's Kelvin Klein. He's from Ghana, and he is a brand strategist. He's a master branding coach, and basically says, if you're not willing to risk finding your voice, you're not going to ever be an influencer, let alone be influential, and you're not going to be able to really grow your business.
Absolutely so. I mean, it's there. It's sometimes you gotta walk up to the ledge, and you gotta jump.
Mm-hmm.
But when you jump, everything changes. You take that leap.
The Steve Harvey YouTube video. Go watch it.
Go watch the jump on that. But if you take that jump, if you take that leap of faith, that's when you will hit that next level. That's when you get there. There's all too many influencers in our lives, in close friends, family members, people in business that like to give you advice on how you're better, how to get better, on all of that type of stuff. And you've got to listen to them, but then you have to go back through your process system of who you are, who you want to be, and where you're going, and saying, is that advice relevant or not? More times than we would like to think, it's not even relevant.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even good advice. It's just somebody that thought they knew something that was saying something on putting that together. But, going back to what you said about Steve Harvey, you got to take that leap of faith. You got to trust that if you're going to jump off that cliff, that parachute on your back is going to open when you pull the pin.
That's true.
And if you don't do that, you just elected to remain the same. And, my thing was, first half of my career, I worked for other people. The biggest problem I got into with other people was I was pushing them too hard. There was only one person that I didn't push too hard in my whole career.
Was that yourself?
No.
Oh. No.
That.
I know that for a fact. That wasn't true.
That was Jimmy Dean, the Jimmy Dean.
Oh, yeah. He was the guy that pushed you.
Because he was an entrepreneur. He started that thing. He started it from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
On putting it together. But he took that jump. And he understood when I resigned to start my own business, he didn't have a problem with it. He wished me good luck. He understood that I had to take that jump and just to see if my parachute would open.
Mm-hmm.
But 20 years later, 25 years later, I'm so happy I did.
It's so true. I mean, you have to be a risk taker these days in order to get ahead, and it does help you to gain that attention. And I, again, quoting back, as the gentleman I told you I follow on Facebook and throughout social media, Bernard Calvin, I think it's Kelvin, so it's not Calvin, like Kal, and last name Clive. And he actually says it's your difference that sets you apart, not your similarity. So that's where you have to understand that we all have competitors, but you have to have that uniqueness that people think of you when they think of that industry. They think of you first because of that uniqueness, and it could be anything from what your tagline is, how you introduce yourself in a 15-second introduction at a networking event, or do you take time to ask questions about the individuals you're meeting, or do you focus on talking about yourself?
There is a great tip.
That.
So what should I do?
Definitely ask questions and find out as much as you can about the other person, because they're going to remember you're the person that cared because you were interested in them.
Yeah. The only way you're going to get them interested in you is you got to take the initiative and go be interested in them.
Mm-hmm. such a valuable lesson that so many of us learned sometimes a little bit too late in our adult life.